I'm
Hello.
Toby Sillet from Onsite Technologies, founder. I'd like to introduce you to one of my colleagues, James Jeffs.
Hi, everybody.
From Onsite, and Tom Kerr from Jola.
Good morning.
The main reason why we're here today is to talk about the critical deadline coming up fast. Next slide, please, Dilshan. And it affects potentially every lift line, fire alarm line, maybe even your payment systems in your building. You might see this something as a problem for the distant future, or maybe just a simple phone line PSTN problem. But today we're really diving into a topic that's not just trending, it's profoundly reshaping real estate. We're talking about the digital transformation, and specifically a really critical and surprisingly complex deadline for property professionals and building managers alike. Our mission today is to unpack all of these complexities and opportunities too. Actually, we want to make sure that you're not just aware, but genuinely ready to act. Because while it might seem like it's just a bunch of old telephone lines, the implications, as we'll explore, go much deeper than that. So let's get into it.
Okay. Hi, everybody. James from Onsite here. So, Toby, the digital transformation, obviously a big hot topic right now. Can you just explain what's driving this to the audience, just to give us an understanding of that?
Good question. What's really driving it is rising energy costs, constant pressure on margins for the buildings to make money and to keep things ticking over. The kind of environment that technology really fundamentally shifted its role. We're not talking about just a cost line on a spreadsheet anymore. We're talking about the implications this has on buildings and how our design enhances the tenant's experience as well.
There's obviously a lot of talk right now around the Openreach PSTN shutdown. Obviously, that's going to be having a big impact on digital transformation. Can you just cover off some of the key points around that and some of the dates that people are going to need to understand?
Yeah, one of the things that has an impact is the rising in energy costs and the constant pressure on that. So the BT switch off is a major impact. By 2027 January, all lines will be turned off. PSTN lines, ISDN lines, all of them will be switched off. That impact has wide-ranging effect on all of the buildings. And we're talking about the integration of services. We're talking about lease lines coming into a building. You're talking about the threat to all of the potential services that are in that building that need to be factored in. There's so many in light of that, really.
Okay. So it sounds quite complex with all of those services that those PSTN lines might be supporting. Question is, what's the fallout if none of the building managers or they leave this too late? Bearing in mind, I think it's 18 months, as you said, until all of the services are shut down. I think one of the other key points on that is that Openreach have already extended the previous date, which was 2025.
Yep. So
if they're not going to extend that, what impact's that going to have on the building managers out there?
Well, it's the liability for starters. Insurance companies are getting wise to the fact that you need to have all of your services in place. And if PSTN line services are being shut off, you've got to think about worst case scenario, someone getting stuck in a lift. What does that mean? Our solution is designed to help, provide UPS backup, provide new lease lines, new network. So there's a whole series of considerations that you need to think about in addition to what might need to be done in the building. It's not just about that. It's also considering the impact that the insurance policy that you have in that building needs to be.
Okay. It sounds quite complex. What sort of process would you be following and recommending for sort of some of the landlords that may have sort of left this to the last and sort of maybe need some support? Is there any sort of recommendations that you can provide for that? Yeah,
I can give you an example, a concrete example of one that we're working on at the moment. 1,500 lines across a portfolio. We're talking about different contracts, different ways of billing. Essentially, you've got to consolidate that, bring all of the old legacy services into one place, move them over to a digital system, and provide a seamless service as best you can before the date of the cut-off, which is January 2027.
So, Tom, hi. It's good to see you from Jola. Obviously, from our side, we're talking about some of the customers that we're coming across. We can see that probably from that customer base that we've looking after, there's say 8 out of 10 are still to make any sort of decision on that.
Yeah.
I just wondered because your Jola obviously provides service to all of the IT and telecoms companies throughout the UK. Could you give us sort of an overview of A, what you're seeing with the transition, and B, maybe talk about some of the benefits that businesses and organisations and the landlords could see by moving across to the new IP replacement services?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's important just to recognise how much of a compelling event there is today. You've got things like the 2G, 3G switch off, which is impacting a lot of customers, but you've also got the PSTN switch off, which is going to impact everyone in this room probably, whether that's consumers, residential, businesses. Every copper line is going to be switched off in January 2027. So really, we've got until December 2026. Everyone's going to go off for Christmas, but we want to get that sorted over the next 12 months. So we have been seeing a lot of traction, lots of conversations, but I think action has been low. I really do think these next 12 to 18 months is where we're going to see the bulk of customers and businesses making change and looking to providers like Onsite and Jola to support them with their PSTN move. BT called these sorts of use cases edge use cases, and they've not focused on alternative viable solutions that are cost effective, that meet regulations and compliance standards, whereas specialists like us have been able to do that. But what I would say is, because of this deadline and because of the big rush that's about to happen, it's going to get hard and more costly to procure hardware because everyone's going to be trying to make these changes. And engineering resources is going to become more sparse as well. So people do need to take action now and look at how they're going to replace their lift lines, how they're going to replace their alarm lines. And it doesn't mean changing out your whole lift solution. It means looking at something where you can change that analog line to a digital line, a digital voice solution, which is compliant. And that compliance bit is also really important. There's certain Ofcom regulations, European safety standards, the EN 81 regs in the lift space that need to be compliant with if you're a building manager or building maintainer and you're providing lifts and safety equipment. So that's really important. And I think in terms of what we're seeing in the market, it's very broad. I'm working on one project at the minute, which is for a property developer. They have 11 sites across London, 300 PSTN lines across their 11 sites, which they are yet to do anything about, which we're helping them with battery backup, UPS voice solutions. But across our channel of partners, which is 1,500 channel partners, there's hundreds of thousands of PSTN lines that are supplying these services that haven't been touched.
They're saying that 9 out of 10 businesses have not actually actively done anything with the PSTN services.
They haven't. And we've got some partners who have just increased the pricing of the existing copper lines and they're doing nothing about it. They're just going to keep increasing it along with the BT increases until it goes kaput and gets shut off. Just try and make as much as they can from it now. But we have got some partners that are being proactive with this and are looking to help and advise and consult end users on how they do that and with the right solutions. And that's really important. Your second question was about how do we monitor and how can we offer something that's more resilient actually than the existing analog line that's there. The copper line that's going into those lifts today isn't monitored. There's a dialer that's calling every 3 days. But with the solutions in our toolkit, we can proactively monitor those connections. We can send resource to site as an issue happens in real time if that does occur, to save those lives of people that might get caught in those lifts. So,
and also send an emergency message to a building manager or a central location for lift companies if they need to.
That sounds much better. I think obviously with the PSTN lines, traditionally everyone's been reliant on OpenReach, who we all know are quite difficult to work with. You're reliant on their portals, their engineers, and they can be very different as well in terms of how much they want to help you. So that's going to be a real benefit of being able to go and change out those services if there is an issue ourselves. Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning, James. I mean, one of the things that you've got to think about is the PSTN service cutting off is essentially affecting CCTV, lift, critical systems that are on the network at the moment, whether it's ADSL service or whatever. With that impact, you're dealing with multiple different real-time effect within a building. That's the operational side. That's all of the data. You've got to think about how you then move all that across in a secure way, making sure the network itself is more resilient and open to more opportunity. So it becomes absolutely paramount that you think about this in the right way.
So just on that, obviously, if you're moving off the PSTN network and you're moving that all onto sort of a managed network, which is now IP, does that create a problem around sort of cyber attacks, other sort of areas that you need to sort of take into consideration?
Digital transformation is being driven partly by the PSTN cut-off, but you've got to think about, January 2027, giving clients only 16 months to replace existing services. What impact that has? Will there be further extensions? Very much doubt it. So you've got to think about the impact on that network. The cyber security threats that we're seeing today will be more prevalent on a network that has more open APIs, and you've really got to start thinking about the permutations that has on the cyber security element as well. So it's not just about the PSTN shut-off, it's about your design of the network, which is why we're all here today. It's a major thing.
I'd just like to add on that. Everything that is digital in this room, you look around, you walk around, and you'll see lots of different sensors, devices, moving copper lines to digital solutions. Every single endpoint that we add into our buildings becomes a risk, a cyber risk. And it's important that you have the right security measures in place with firewalls, but also from a networking perspective, solutions like private APNs that can secure your mobile data if it's connected over 4G, 5G, that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, I think one of the difficult parts for a lot of these traditional buildings is where landlords are taking those over sometime as well, where they're just inheriting what's there. And no one seems to ever have an understanding of where these lines have been installed and what they're supporting sometimes. So that makes it really, really tricky. And I think it's one of the things why people do need to start not just thinking about this, but actually making actions and start work on it now so that they can get that going.
Yeah.
Do you want to summarise in terms of some of the benefits then?
Yeah, just overall, I think, everybody knows how important this is, but it's really just about having a plan of action, understanding what your building consists of, your portfolio consists of, and start to put together a plan as to how you're going to transform that building from analog PSTN lines into the new age, which is essentially digital transformation, and that's where we can help. So please come over to our stand and we'd be delighted to speak to you more about it.
I think sort of lastly from my side, actually before I do that, Tom, have you got anything that you want to sort of pick up?
No, I think we've covered most of it.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that. So I think from my side, the one thing I'm looking at really is from the network and security side of these buildings. I think that's maybe one aspect that has not really been sort of catered for, and it's something that we're really going to need to sort of drive forward for the businesses that are supporting these buildings now, especially the multi-purpose buildings. You've seen recent attacks with like the Co-op, Marks and Spencer's, Jaguar this week. Colt Telecoms is another company that have had issues where their network's been attacked, and I think once a digital transformation is sort of completed, that's probably one of the biggest areas that people are going to need to consider. And it's something that we're going to pick up on day 2 tomorrow around sort of cybersecurity and how landlords and buildings can start mapping those services and get a real understanding of sort of areas of weakness that they're going to have come the digital transformation and areas that they're going to need support in. So for anyone who's around tomorrow, that is sort of going to be our next speech, and sort of talking around those services and how we can help everybody on that. So other than that, thank you very much for everybody. And I know if there's any questions, light on the audience. I think everyone's run off to lunch, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers.